If imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, then Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, and Theo Vaughn must be absolutely beaming.
Democrats are taking a crack at the podcast game. On the one hand, you have California Governor Gavin Newsom.
So far, Newsom has had 3 right-wing powerhouse guests: Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk, War Room host Steve Bannon, and political commentator Michael Savage. Newsom has been able to surpass 1 million views within these 3 episodes, and has even split with Democrats on certain issues in the process.
Here's a clip.
And crushed. And you have an opportunity in the state to be like, look, I have a heart for A.B. Hernandez. I have a heart for the San Jose volleyball player. Let's give them compassion. But what's not fair is just for entire women's sports.
I agree. By the way, I agree with you. The issue of fairness is completely legit. So I completely align with you. And we've got to own that. We've got to acknowledge it. The Latinx stuff, by the way, not one person ever in my office has ever used the word Latinx.
So can we finally put that to bed?
Yeah,
we agree?
Where did that even
No
go?
more Latinx, everybody.
Well, I just didn't even know where it came from. I'm like, what are people talking about?
Some on the left are blasting Newsom for these heresies and for having right-wing guests. Here's former Congressman Adam Kinzinger this week.
I see that Gavin Newsom has decided to invite Steve Bannon on his podcast, and they're going to have just a wonderful conversation. Bannon is the author of this chaos we're seeing right now. Bannon is the one that says you need to flood the zone with Bannon is the one that has basically authored where we are and what Donald Trump wants. And because Gavin Newsom wants to run for president and thinks he's going to be this healer, he brings on this nationalist. Many of us on the right sacrificed our careers taking these people on, and Newsom's trying to make a career with them. This is insane.
Separate from all that, there's former First Lady Michelle Obama. She launched her new podcast titled IMO this week. She's done 2 full podcasts, one with her brother, who's a co-host, and another with actress Issa Rae.
She's uploaded 5 videos in total so far, but has yet to surpass 1 million views. Here's one clip that has gone viral.
Well, Barack, he had to adjust to what on time was for me.
Because he was on that island time.
Well, but, I've got this husband who's like, when it's time to leave, it's 3 o'clock, he's getting up and going to the bathroom. And I was like, dude, like 3 o'clock departure means you've done all that, It's like, don't start looking for your glasses, at the 3 o'clock departure. But he's improved over 30 years of marriage. But that was you must adjust.
Of course, some on the right have ripped the First Lady for her relatively low numbers and content. Political commentator Benny Johnson wrote on X, Michelle Obama's first couple of podcast episodes absolutely flopped, not even getting a combined 20,000 views in the 15 hours after posting. What an utter failure. Who thought this was a good idea?
So much to get to here, Amber.
Indeed.
First of all, I'm reminded of the dangers of ad-libbing in the script, because I said that Newsom was being criticised by people on the left, not knowing we were introducing a clip of Adam Kinzinger, who is not on the left by any
not
realistic
on the right
version. No, exactly. He's somewhere in the middle ground there. So look, 2 things. Firstly, I think that Gavin Newsom is in fact to be applauded by talking to people who fervently disagree with him. You could argue about who exactly he should or shouldn't be speaking with. I'm not particularly, as a viewer, avidly interested in what Charlie Kirk has to say, but if he wants to have those discussions, I think that's a good thing. I think there is far too much political discourse right now that is purely people talking to others with whom they agree. So fair enough, and fair enough if those discussions lead to a more questioning approach to certain things that have become kind of democratic or liberal shibboleths.
Yeah, I'm fine with Gavin Newsom having a podcast so long as it doesn't distract him from running the state of California. That could be problematic when it comes time for him to do his inevitable presidential run in 2028. But I read this X post from communications consultant Lulu Chang that I thought was really interesting, which is that Newsom has not only invited these right-wing guests on, but he's kept the conversation civil and even warm, and will gradually distance himself from the woke excesses of the past. And now he'll have several years to hone his arguments, practice debating, and explain away political liabilities like his COVID school closures, which I think is an interesting way of looking at it. This is effectively practice for him when he has to distance himself from some of the policies of California that are considered too liberal for the rest of the country, or of the Democratic Party writ large that have largely been culturally out of fashion since the past election. So in that sense, it's kind of wise.
Yeah, but are you implying that is... I mean, I don't see anything nefarious about that. I mean, if he wants to practice for a presidential run, I think that's fine.
That. Okay. Oh, I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's actually a smart strategy.
No, and I think it's a smart strategy not only in terms of the issue of practice that you mentioned, but in terms of this attempt to try to create or at least engage with new methods of communication. And so there has, as you're well aware, been this whole debate because Joe Rogan, having been at one stage a Bernie Sanders supporter, has certainly, I think, drifted fairly significantly to the right. And we see other people in the conservative space getting very high numbers for podcasts that are plainly right-leaning, if not, fervently so. And so I think that there is an attempt on Newsom's part to try to create that kind of space. I think that's a good thing. We had a debate actually earlier on this week on Rising about California, which I think there's a whole other debate to be had there where I think that it is used as a kind of emblem of democratic malfeasance in a way that I don't actually think is particularly fair, but that will be, of course, leveled against Newsom, and he'll have a chance to defend himself.
I think one of the big problems with the Democrats' shift to podcasting is that they are not really understanding the underlying reasons why these right-coded podcasts do so well.
Which is what, in your opinion?
Well, if you're looking at people like Joe Rogan and Theo Von or the Nelk Boys or Full Send podcast, these things are not inherently political. They might have a political bent, they might have political guests, and certainly talk about political issues. But these are not people who are part of a party apparatus. They're not people who have views that are easily pigeonholed into one particular ideology. I mean, if you listen to Theo Von interview Bernie Sanders and talk about healthcare, and then interview Trump and talk about culture, like this could be two different people. But it's sort of this left-right populist crossover phenomenon that's been happening with people like Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., and again, Joe Rogan. So when the Democrats are saying, okay, we're going to have our own podcasting apparatus, and we're going to have Gavin Newsom, Michelle Obama, the Pod Save America guys who all worked for the Obama administration, we're going to have Hassan Piker and these other really dyed-in-the-wool left-wing activists. They're kind of missing the magic of why people are so attracted to the right-coded podcast or the bro podcast, which is that these people are not politicians. They're not people who have campaign experience. They're not people who worked for the DNC. They're actually real people who just have political opinions that are not easily compartmentalized into one box or ideology.
I'm just thinking through that, as you said, and I think that is a pretty fair point. I can't think instantly of somebody who is a very big new media figure who's just a man or woman who happens to lean liberal. And I mean, could you say that about the woman who Kamala Harris did the podcast with in the campaign?
Alex Cooper.
I mean, she, I think, is she not liberal leaning by her nature?
I'm sure she is. I guess the difference is that her podcast has been geared towards celebrity and pop culture. And the only political interview she did was Kamala Harris, whereas these other people sort of dabble in politics on a regular basis. So that seems more inauthentic because it was so outside of the scope of what the show usually does. Yeah, possibly. I mean, I am not somebody who's necessarily like a hater of Joe Rogan, for example. Now, I don't also listen to his 3-hour episodes every time, but I do take the point that there is a conversational tone to it. I do wonder if, to your point, I mean, it seems to me when I hear Rogan or see clips of him that he is moving increasingly into alignment with the current Republican Party. And I wonder if there's at any point where that does begin to impede the kind of thing that you're talking about, which is a more organic appeal. Certainly, from what it's worth, I think he's increasingly kind of groveling toward Elon Musk, which, is not, doesn't appeal to me very much, but we'll see if it has any detrimental impact on him. As far as, let me just put in a pro-Michelle Obama note at the end, because I do think that she is a very appealing figure to a lot of people. Obviously, conservatives dislike her because she's not conservative, but if you look at something like her first memoir, Becoming, that had massive sales. She did a whole arena tour for it.
different things that people do have different levels of appeal. There was a follow-up, well, not really a follow-up. There was a second book, which was not a memoir, was more sort of good feelings book that didn't do so well, and the podcast with her brother hasn't drawn enormous audiences. But I do think that she is someone who does have broader appeal, even though very obviously being a very firm Democrat.
Yeah, I think time will tell whether this is just different venue, different method, different level of support, or is the Obama's influence on the Democratic Party waning a bit after the Biden coup, and that remains to be seen.
See, Amber, we were having such a nice discussion, and now you start talking about Biden coups and whatnot.
Biden replacement.
It was a perfectly legitimate party repairing or replacing somebody who was too old to be president.
Well, all right.
As they were entitled to do.
They're welcome to do it, but we don't have to like it. That does it for us today on Rising. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.